This is AndyTube. I'm going to start the restoration of Regina by working on these throat plate positioning bracket. Several of the things I want to remove and adjust are under this needle plate, and this positioning plate lever is supposed to come up here like it does and raise the plate up above the feed dog for darning or monogramming. But then if you continue all the way to the left to the unlock position, it's supposed to raise this plate up high enough so it can be removed, like if you want to clean in there or you want to change the needle plate. And that's the part that is stuck. I can't get it past this point. And this is pretty common on these 400, 500, 600 class machines that have this lifting system. And it's usually that dried up oil and gunk are in these little tubes that the pins are in, and they're just stuck in there. And I'll show you the lever and stuff that moves it, because we're going to take this apart so I can clean it, and then we can move on with other restoration projects. Whenever I'm working on a machine like this, I go ahead and remove the arm cover like so. There's just two screws that hold it into position here. Just take those screws out, then I can lift the cover straight up and off. And then I'm going to remove the nose cover here so that I don't damage it while I'm working on it, the machine. So I'll just lift it up and tilt out the bottom a little bit, and then lift up the top. Now, to see what's going on under here, I'm going to lay the machine on its back so I can get a better look at the bracket and the lifting pins and so forth down here. Let's take a look here. Yay! So here is the actual bracket right here. It comes from the lever I was showing you up top here. That's for down, and then this is the up position that I can't move past. But you see, it just comes at an angle here and it goes through a little slide glide, and then there's some bumps on it, and one is to set the first pin, or the right pin, and then the other is behind the adjusting nut over here, up inside. And these pins, this stuff is what's there's some kind of problem with. Now it's interesting when you want to take this bracket off, that the service manual says that you'll put the position of the lever to the right, up here, and you move it to the right, which is the down position, and then you push on the lever over here on the left side, and then you can remove the nut. And sometimes you can't push it back far enough to clear the nut, and you can't get it out because of the stuck pins. So it's a little bit of a dilemma. Let me try and push it as far as I can with my thumb here and see if I can turn the nut. Oh, okay, it's just got enough clearance to do that. And that's great. If you can't push this up enough to get past the back of the nut, you're just going to have to work around it. And by that I mean, what I'm going to do is spray some penetrating oil up into the pins from the bottom. And if you can't get this nut off, you just have to go in through the top up here. And there's something up in here. I see now some white stuff. Oh, it's some kind of grease. Oh, I think somebody tried to put that white, I can't even remember what kind of grease that is called, except it's like white cream, and when it dries it gets as hard as a rock, and that's why you shouldn't use it. But let's go ahead and get this nut out. On this machine that I have here, this nut is made out of nylon, and some of them are made out of metal, and I'd rather have those. So you never want to force a nylon nut because you can break it or crack it. And you see in the back here this cross-cut position that I'm talking about. And that's when you're adjusting it, this bracket pops into here. So you can adjust it like in quarter turns, and I'll be showing you later, but when you push this in, you have to get it back up there enough so the bracket will pop out of whatever cut it's in, and then you can remove it. And here, now that I've got it, the bracket just will swing out. Okay, and then you get a better idea here of how that bracket and adjusting nut work together. So when you're pushing this bracket, let me turn this a little, when you're pushing that bracket up to remove the nut, see, you got to get it past the nut so the nut will turn. If it's even barely in the nut won't turn. And you don't want to force it. The metal one is not going to force. This one, what will happen is you either crack it in half or you chip off one or two of these little quarter pieces. Okay, so now I can show you how this bracket just kind of swings out here, so you can get it out of your way for now while you work on this pin situation. And I don't know if I can get enough light in here to show you. Maybe you can kind of see that there's let me get something to dig in there with. Somebody put some kind of the white funky grease in there. It's pretty fresh. This hasn't hardened, so I'm thinking somebody had the machine and tried putting grease in there to maybe loosen it up. I don't know, but for whatever, let's see if we'll be able to get some more light in here. It's still pretty dark in there. Let me grab a light. I'm hoping with this LED flashlight I can, there. You can see the bottom of the pin in there. It's like a little nipple looking. And see, here's the right pin. Same kind of thing. It's the bottom of the two pins. Okay. And that's what we want to get those pins to go up, because that's what this bump and this bump do as they slide back and forth, is push the pins up. Okay, pushes them a little bit up and then the rest of the way up. And then there's a bracket here that, let's see if I can get this off of here. Oh boy, these things are really... This one's moving pretty good over here. There's a bracket and then the pins go through the bracket, but this pin over here is really... Let's see if I can just put something in there. Oh, there. Now it's starting to move a little bit. Okay, I think I'm just going to put a squirt of penetrating oil in there anyway. I'm just going to try and... how can I do it without blocking your view? I'm going to get behind the bracket here because there's springs inside that push these down against the lever, and I'm going to just get above it on those springs and shoot a little bit of penetrating oil up into the trying to get it up in that tube and loosen things up. Now I've had these be really stuck hard. These are not too bad. I've had these just terrible where I've just put the machine upside down on the bench and sprayed oil right in here and warmed the area up with a hair dryer and worked on it and come back later and done that again and again and again until finally they get some movement in here. And that's freeing it up pretty good now. Okay, let's see if I can... I'm going to put this back in here. Let's see if we can... So I can push both at the same time. I think it's going to work now. I'm just going to temporarily put this back in so that I can use the lever to raise those pins and get the needle plate off. Then I can take the pins out and I can show you the whole system, and we'll clean it up and I'll show you how to put it back in and adjust it and so forth. So I'm going to push this back up away so I can tighten the nut, right? And usually you want the nut to be about flush with the housing here. It's usually a pretty good spot. Now, let's see if I can get it back up here and see if the lever will work now, so I can take off. Whoop. Sorry. Got a temporary light there. Okay, so I'm going to move the lever, right? And we'll see. There's the up, and there's the raise. See them how they popped up more? Let's see if they popped up enough that I can get that off now. Oh, close. Look at how close that is to coming off there. Okay, let's see if I can gently... You can't pull these pins up because of the springs and stuff inside there. Yeah, I just don't want to force it up. So that's why they call this an adjusting nut. I need to tighten it up a little bit more to give those pins more lift. And now that I'm looking at it directly and not through the camera, I see I didn't quite have it flush here. So let me... Oh, there you go. Did you just hear the needle plate fall off? Yay! Here's the needle plate. It came off. Okay. So, let's go ahead and take this off now. You can work on getting the pins out of there. So oh boy, see, I kind of over tightened that, didn't I? No, I guess it's still just kind of mucked up inside. Having trouble getting this pushed up enough. To get that nut out. There. Whew. That's the thing with whether it's a metal nut or this nylon. Don't over tighten it, because these have a slight curve to them, and if you really force it, they'll flex and you can tighten it, and then believe me from experience, you cannot get it off. It's very, very, very bad. Okay, get this out where we can get a bigger look at it now. There we go. So, and I got penetrating oil here to wipe up a little bit. So we'll swing this out like I said before, and let's see if we can pull these out now. Yeah, see, I got enough of the gunk off of them. There's one of the pins. See that right inside? Let's see if I can. There we go. There we go. I'll show you how this works now. There's the actual little lifting pin, and you see this flat end will go on the bottom, and this nipple end goes in first, like that. And when the bracket slides over this and pushes it, that is what lifts that pin inside up to push the needle plate up. Okay, and then here is the spring that goes over it that pushes back down when the bracket is in the down position and the lever is in the down position. And you see how that little scoop out there, that's where that needle plate fits in, just like that. Okay. So let's see if we can get the other pin out of there. There it comes, and we'll see all the gunk on it. There it is. Yeah, somebody had put that in there before. Don't want that kind of grease. I'm sorry I can't remember what it's called. But you don't want to use it because it dries very hard. And here's some lint, but here's the other pin holder and the actual pin itself. And in here is where oil can get, and these can get dried up and just frozen in there. I mean, just frozen, and it can get around the outside, and the spring can get all mucked up if it's never cleaned, and lint gets in there, and the oil soaks into it and dries up, and these springs will be stuck to the housing, and you won't be able to push them up from the bottom. So that wasn't too bad at all to get that out of there. This is still very dirty in the little tubes. Let's see if I can show you one of the tubes here. You can, there, I think you can get this here. Let me cut my holder up there. I think you can see daylight through there now. See if I stick my pointer up through the top, you'll see there. It's right made into the casting of the machine, a little tube for these pin holders to fit into and slide. And then before you put them in, they go through this this little odd shaped bracket here, and that's to just help them work in unison together. Here's a little brush here. So normally I would just leave this out, and then I'm going to give the whole machine a bath later in the series. But if you're just cleaning your pins, you can use a brush, or you can stuff a rag from a t-shirt in there with some cleaning solution, or just water or alcohol works pretty good, and you can kind of give it a shoe shine back and forth with a rag if you don't have a brush, and get those tubes cleaned out. Okay, now for the rest of these parts, I'm going to soak them in a little cleaner while we work on the other part of the bracket, the other end there where the lever is. So I've got my two pin holders, and I've got the two pins, and I got the two springs, and I've got the bracket for them. So let me get some cleaner for that. And if you don't have cleaner, you can just use a soapy water, like dish soapy water, you know, or alcohol, or any other kind of degreaser that you're comfortable with. Get up here where you can see a little bit. So I'm going to take my old Tupperware thing from the 1970s and throw these parts in there. And this is about a 25% solution of crud cutter, which you'll be seeing more of in this series. And the degreaser and cleaner I just love to use. I'll be using this on the whole machine in the bathtub and shower later. Okay, so I'll put that to the side here and get that soaking. It's probably already clean, but now I want to show you how to take the rest of this out. If you ever have to, if you find a machine that somebody tried to get it out, or bent it, or broke it, I want to show you how to get the whole thing out completely. Okay. To stand the machine back up, I'm just going to put it back in here, in the slot, and up into the tube, so that I won't be bending it. I'll put my hand there to kind of keep it in place as I stand the machine back up. Get it back here where we can take a look at it. And you can see now those tubes are empty because I got the pins out. Okay, but this is the part over here that we want to look at. And some of these, now I've never had one, but I have seen pictures of them where the bracket below is attached to the lever above with a screw right in this hole. And what you do is, by putting the lever in the straight, the up position, it positions the bracket and lever connection right here, and there's a screw, like a hinge screw, and you just unscrew it and you can pull the bracket out the bottom without removing any of this stuff, if that's what you want. But I have never personally had a machine like that, and this one isn't like it. So I'm going to put the lever in the position, and I'm going to loosen these two screws that hold like a cover plate over those. And these screws They're brown screws and they're a little bit soft in my opinion. So be sure that you have a screwdriver tip that fits them very well, and so you don't strip them or damage them. And if they don't turn, you can spray some penetrating oil on them, and you can go underneath and spray the penetrating oil. You can warm it with a hair dryer to try and loosen them up. But let's there it goes. This one is going to turn, so I won't have to do any of that stuff I was talking about. Screws go right into threads that are on the cast aluminum body. Brown screw. And let's see if the other one comes off as nicely. I've had these too where people took it apart to try and fix it, and they put the pieces together backwards or in the wrong order, and the lever won't work. So you may find a machine like that at a garage sale or thrift shop. Okay, once you have those screws out, this plate's kind of a brass material with painted. It should lift up off of the machine, and you just want to rotate it a little bit to get it up off the lever. Now that we have the indicator plate off, this next piece of steel in here is called the stop plate, and that stops the lever one way or the other. This is a very good point for you to take some pictures with your cell phone or camera, whatever, so that you know how to reassemble it. Okay, because this can confuse people. So I'm going to take up the stop plate here, and the same way I'm just going to rotate it a little bit to get it up off of the lever. Give you a little bit closer look at that. See, that lever can rock kind of in here in this raised portion. Okay. Now this next piece is actually called a spring, even though it's heavy metal. It's not what I think of as a spring, but Singer called it a spring. And again, this is a good place to take pictures, but I'm just going to lift this bracket lever up a little bit because this has little hooks that go under it. So I'll just lift that up to the side, and then you can see the little hooks I'm talking about. And this, I don't know, it doesn't flex much to me. I think it's just the bracket going back and forth in there. But that is called the spring. And now you can see the cross piece. See, can I get that up here maybe? You can see the cross piece of the lever, and you can see the hinge rivet here and how that sets down in there like that. And you can see a bunch of old mucky stuff in here that we'll be cleaning out. Okay, but now that you got all that off, you can go in here and you can tilt this, and the way I was turning those pieces up on top to get off of the lever, I'm just going to pull this out and rotate it 90 degrees to pull the lever out of that hole. There's dirty. So you ever wonder that old oily garagey smell on an old machine, especially when you start, see, somebody put some kind of grease in here too, which isn't necessary. But now you're seeing the whole shebang here. Okay, put that to the side. I wonder if I could get you a shot from underneath there. Of course, if you ever do this, you'll see it yourself. But I'm not going to be able to show that. I stick my pointer through there. Yep. That's that triangular space, and it's right above the gear set up here, molded into the frame. And then I'll stand it back up here, and you can see then how it's empty without the bracket, right? Take down a little wide V shape here that all those parts sit into, and the screw holes and so forth. So let's take a look at my parts here. Yeah, they're going to be easy to clean now. I'm going to go rinse those off, and I'm going to just clean this up a little bit, and then I'll show you how it all goes back together. Alright, now that I have my pieces cleaned up here, I'm going to show you how to reassemble all of these pieces back together. So I just cleaned them with the crud cutter. The soaking actually did it. I just had to rinse it. This, with that old dry grease, I had to scrub a little bit with a brush. But it came out nice. Then I dried them with a hair dryer. And if those of you who haven't seen any of my cleaning videos, I'll put a link to one at the end of this video to show you how I clean these small parts with crud cutter. But to get this started back in here, I'm first going to put in the actual bracket. Okay, and the way that I'm going to do this is this part of the bracket with the bumps is going to face upward on the bottom of the machine. Okay, but first I have to get this through that rectangular hole. So I'm just going to turn that and get it up through the hole. Once the lever is up there, then I can rotate that lever and the bracket to the left here, and I'm going to temporarily put it back in the slots here to just kind of keep it in place while I do the top side connections. Okay, let me get these parts off to the side here, and I'll get the machine turned up and we'll continue. While I've got this exposed here, I'm going to go ahead and put just a small drop of oil right on that hinge rivet. Just a little. No need to get carried away. Then the first part that's going to go back on here is what they call the spring. And the screw hole goes on the left, and those little hooks go underneath the cross bar of the lever. So lift the lever up and then set it back down on those hooks like that. Pretty easy, huh? Okay. And then the stop bracket is going to go over that. Now if you're looking at this stop bracket, if you remember, it's got these little curves that go on top of that crossbar. So that crossbar is going to rest between the hooks on the spring and these curves on the stop bracket. And the other way to see that you're doing it right is these curves face up, and you see that these curves are not in the center of that open rectangle. They're on the right side of it, and that's how you want it, so that it'll go on and sit. I've got to curve it a little to get it over the bracket, but then it's going to sit right on top of that crossbar for the lever. So you see how those kind of pinch that lever in place and allow it to work back and forth, right? So that makes sense. And I'm going to move it to the left a little bit because I want to put on the indicator plate as the top piece here. So I'll twist it to get it over the lever and then drop it back down just like that. Now these screws are this long to go through all three of those plates and then go into the frame, into the body, the threads down in the body. So we'll get them started in the fingertips, and take your time with these. Don't force them. Like I said before, they are soft screws, and I have scratched these up, and years ago I stripped threads on one, and these Singer screws are proprietary sizes in threading, and I've never had much luck just going to the hardware store and getting a replacement. You usually have to buy a used vintage part off of eBay. So just take your time with it. You'll get your reward when you're using the machine and this lever system, and the throat, lifts up the throat plate or needle plate so easily, and you'll be very pleased with how it works then. So just make sure that you get your indicator plate down in the little recessed area, and everything is moving easily back and forth now. Then I'll just do the final little tightening of these screws. Don't over torque them because they're only holding the indicator plate on. Very nice. Nicely done, huh? Okay. So let's turn this on its back. Now we'll turn the machine on its back. Get my towel back here so I don't scratch the paint. And I got my bracket here. And let's get over here and take a look at this side, and we'll get the pins and the holders and the springs and everything back in there, and then we can use the adjusting nut to set the height of those pins. This really is looking good, isn't it? Okay, so to set these parts back in there, you do a little pre-assembly, which I'll show you here. Where's my spring, where's my other little pin, sorry. Okay, here. So we're just going to put the actual pins into the holder, and remember the little pointy end goes in first, right? Wow, look how easy those move now. So I'll do that on both of these. Okay, let's see if I come down here and you can see this. So I'll get these. Now you should realize that these slots are going to face inward towards each other to hold the needle plate, right? And then we'll put the spring over the holders. That's what actually puts pressure down on the needle plate when you're not using the bracket to raise the needle plate. Now we've got to put this bracket on. And you know what? I should put that on before the springs. Sorry. And the way that this is going to go on here, if you look at the way this is shaped, this hole is round, this one has a square frame. Okay, so this is the proper way to put it in. The way I had it, it was going to go up here too high and hit part of the body. So it's got to come across and drop down below that. So I'm going to put this tube holder with the pin, and I'll pop a spring on there, and then I'm going to put the other tube holder with the pin pointing in, I mean the slots pointing each other, and I'll put a, I'll show you, put a spring on there. Okay, so this is how I'm going to pick it up, just like that, and then I'm going to slide it into the kind of tube openings here in the frame. Okay, so come on, you got that one. This one you can't see the would you look at that? Yeah, you can't see the tube as well because it's hidden in here. So just find your way in there, and then you're just going to push them in up to the spring. Got it? Right? Now we're going to swing the bracket and put it in the slots, just like that. And I'll just put my thumb here like it's the adjusting nut, and I'm going to move that lever up top because I want you to see how this moves the bracket now nice and smooth. See that? Yep. Now we want that lever up on the top all the way to the right where it says down on the indicator plate. And now we're going to put the adjusting nut on here. It's a little bit yellow with age, but it cleaned up nice, didn't it? Okay, so we're going to, and remember the lever is up above, the lever is on the down position. So we're going to push that in as far as we can with our thumb, and then we're going to get the adjusting screw started, and we definitely don't want to cross thread this, right? this old plastic. Now see, I don't have it far enough in. See how it's sticking out from the beige painted frame there? So I'm going to push that lever in with my thumb, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this in until the nut is about flush with the frame. If you feel it start hitting the bracket, you might want to see, like right there, I can feel it kind of hit the bracket. So I think that's far enough. I'm going to let the bracket go, and I'm going to, let's see, should I'd rather err on the cautious side, so I'll come back until the bracket pops into that cross cut. There. Because, like I said, I can always adjust it a little more, but if you go too far, it's very difficult to get the bracket out of that cross cut. Okay. So I'm going to stand the machine up now, and we'll take a look and see how I did. When you're going to put on or remove or change the throat plate, you want to turn the hand wheel until the take-up lever comes down, and feed dog is at the lowest spot, so that the feed dog won't interfere with the needle plate. Okay, and then Singer says to remove it and put it on from the back side. So let's see if I can get it to go on here at that height that I adjusted to. There it goes. And then I would move the lever back down, and it seats good. Lift it back up. There's the pre-motion sew or monogramming position and unlock position to move it off. So my adjustment is within range. It just seems a little bit tight. So I'm going to look at it and see if I could go a quarter of a turn to that next little slot opening. I would. If I feel that's too far, then I'll leave it where it is, because I can get the plate changed. It's just, I might be able to do it, so let's see. Oops, a better screwdriver than that. I'll just try a quarter of a turn. So I've got to have the lever in the down position all the way to the right, so I can push that bracket all the way in. Let's just see if I can. Okay, that went pretty good. That didn't feel like it was too much or anything. Didn't feel like I was forcing it. Let's go back up top now, and I'll put the lever in the unlock position and see if that really did make it any easier. Oh yeah, much better. Okay, so I like that. Just a little, just one more quarter turn, and it makes it a lot easier to do it. So that's about unsticking and removing, replacing, adjusting the throat plate position bracket and the lifting pins. Get in here all the way. There we go, smooth. On a Singer Model 403A. Now that I've got that done, I can start going about other parts of the restoration, the needle bar, presser bar, and so forth. So I hope you tune in for one of those videos as I continue now getting into the restoration of Regina, a Singer Model 403A Special. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again. Take care.